Hello then, my fellow hunters, and welcome back to Monster Lore. As today, we examine Rukodiora, the very first original Elder Dragon to grace Frontier, and indeed he is a pioneer of Magnetism. And when you think about it, Magnetism is a pretty good defense against a load of people running around with stabby sticks covered in metal. Oh yes, so this then is the Pole Dragon, or indeed the Magnetic Dragon. He was deployed in Monster Hunter Frontier Forward 1, and indeed it was quite the colourful creative creation. But before we talk about what he can do, let's judge him on his appearance! Indeed then, he fits the mould of the kind of classic Elder Dragon look. The skeleton, the Teostra, the Ecology, and indeed Rookodiora. You kind of see where the scheme is there. And he is quite the specimen. Atop his head is a trifecta of horns, two pointed back, one pointed forward. They are quite the impressive arrangement. I'm not sure how I feel about the one pointed forward, or maybe if it was only that one without the ones pointed back, but it's also not the worst thing in the world. And indeed, they are breakable, well, 3 times. The rest of him then is fairly plain and understated. The black scaling is very cool. The orange highlights do indeed pop. The adorning spikes on his joints are, of course, there. But all of this pales in comparison to the star attraction. These sweeping wings adorning his back, continuing down his tail, the spines of which, all the way to the tip, are simply magnificent. The gradient orange to yellow to a brighter, almost white, evocative of the sun, resplendent and powerful. And indeed, it does signify that raw power. It reminds me of something along the lines of a Dimetrodon. Dimetrodon with a sail on his back, with its great fanned back that it flushes with blood to display a vibrant, threatening pattern to ward off aggressors. But, you know, Elder Dragon form. He really is quite the good choice for Frontier's first, as he's both familiar but so very distinctly different and his own. And of course, bringing with you, you know, magnetism is quite the cool little gimmick. It is said this dragon dates back to ancient times, still remaining today and still largely unchanged. Golden dust follows where it flies, glittering in the sky. He truly is, at least from afar, at least when calm, quite the pretty sight. It likes to cause a little bit of a ruckus, attack towns and settlements as many Elder Dragons do, but when your battlements tend to be, well, highly composed of metal, a magnetic dragon makes short work of them. Now, a lot of animals do interface with magnetism, but very surface level, or at least not in any kind of actual day-to-day use. A lot of animals navigate with magnetism. They are able to get around using the Earth's magnetic field. From whales to birds to bees, there really is quite the collection of animals that seem to be in tune with magnetism around them. In fact, pigeons are the star of the show on that front. They seem to have by far and away the best grasp of it. And indeed, that's why homing pigeons are a thing. That's why they are indeed so good at reliably navigating such long distances back and forth, carrying messages. But weaponizing it, of course, is a step further, and it's where we must accept the creative liberties of, you know, well, Elder Dragons. He is electromagnetically charged. His very scales themselves are. He is not generating it per se. He's not controlling it with his horns. You can't shut him down. It's as part of his body as his blood, his bones, his flesh. And he very much is aware of that. He can scatter his scales much like Gormagala scatters his own to generate clouds of frenzy. But in this case, it will magnetize that which can be magnetized upon contact. And what can be magnetized a lot of the time is a lot of the equipment hunters come well equipped with. And indeed, this gives you the magnet debuff, this status effect. And while this is happening, basically, you can just be thrown about the place at the will of this dragon. You can be pushed away, you can be pulled towards. You are at his mercy. And that is kind of terrifying. Imagine being able to just get thrown into an attack you otherwise were well clear of. Imagine getting launched backwards as your swing misses despite it surely about to succeed. It is quite the fearsome battlefield to control, and it makes him one hell of an opponent. And taking a leaf out of Nawa's playbook, although he came many, many years before her, he can raise the very ground, the debris, the rock around him using his electromagnetic forces. In fact, it's hard to, well, deny that this guy might well be a significant factor in Nawa's power set and her design, even if physically in their place in the world could not be more different. Though even before Nawa, it is said that creatures like Rookodiora and his wind generation has an electromagnetic property, that Kulftaroth herself gets her glittering cloak by a similar yet more rudimentary command of this power. Though that said, gold itself is not technically considered a magnetic material. It can be pushed and pulled, but it can't be turned into a magnet itself, so the chances are high that Kulftaroth perhaps uses a slightly different method. In fact, all likelihood it's a quite simple burn, melt it onto back, let it solidify, it's now attached and ready to go. However, I digress. Let's return to our Elder Dragon and what he actually does with this ability. Well, as I said within our example, raising the ground, having the debris float around him, blocking attacks from his opponents and throwing it in return. He's also very much in favor of physical combat, claws, swipes, charges, bashes, you know the Elder Dragon drill. Look, I couldn't resist, okay? But he also has command over electricity itself and can generate it as an offensive option, combining it with dragon element. Yes, indeed, he commands it, as do many Elder Dragons, and indeed makes him a rare creature with dragon lightning in its most devastating form. And indeed, you don't want to get hit by this, because his body exists so naturally electromagnetically charged at all times as a core part of his existence. You can't really paralyze him. You can, but he is able to slowly power through and walk forward during paralysis. This is both incredibly badass, incredibly unique, incredibly cool, but also makes it incredibly difficult to effectively damage him while you have said paralysis off. Other options then are much better placed at dealing with this dragon. He is indeed quite enigmatic, a relatively new discovery initially taken as people misidentifying Kushala and Teostra, though admittedly he does look very different from them, so I don't know how much I do give credence to that, but in any case, he is very much still under research. And he tends to spend a lot of his time in the desert, though whether that's his natural habitat is unknown. The only other place he's been fought is while getting repelled from an assault upon a settlement fortress. Just existing around this incredibly aggressive Elder Dragon is bad news. I mean, it took it upon himself to literally attack the Interceptor's base, which is quite the ballsy move and generally isn't done by Elder Dragons of his size. That tends to fall to the really big boys that think they can get away with it, so this guy is quite well aware of his power. If you just simply touch him, you've got every chance of slicing your limbs off via his claws themselves, or indeed, if you manage to avoid them, you will essentially tase yourself, going completely numb and eventually passing out from the shock of it. He really is an electrified dragon, a living magnet, and something truly not to be ever taken lightly. But it does not simply end there. There is indeed Rebidiora, an overcharged subspecies that takes everything to the next level. His colours hue to purple and green, and his body reacts to the struggle to contain the overflowing essence within him. He is commanding the Thunder Pole element, uniquely his, and quite the potent offensive tool. It is a mix of lightning itself, but also his own mysterious power. And hunters themselves can wield it too with his weapons, causing attacks to release bursts of electricity, but also bursts of black and red energy in alternation. He then can release giant balls of electromagnetic energy that slowly descend to the ground, ripping and pulling everything towards it before exploding on contact as mini magnetic shrapnel grenades, which is quite the experience to deal with. It can also do vortex-esque moves, black hole type suction displays, and you know the drill here. Look, again, I really can't resist. Essentially, imagine Rebidiora as our original lovely Rukodiora, but turned up to 11. Everything he can do enhanced with some really overwhelming new moves, just to make him that much more difficult. I would argue that he is a variant due to him being caused by a change in biology in the base form, but that said, he definitely is quite the step up. Though talking of step up, there is also a Zenith Rukodiora. Zenith monsters are just ultra powerful changed versions of the original, again for one hell of an extra challenge, and he is definitely different in this form. The lightning running across his wings, it's cool, but a lot of him tends to get quite overgrown here, and his display of power becomes absolute. They take the black-red lightning-esque and just run with it, to the point that they can inflict a special version of Dragon Blight that quite literally prevents a hunter from recovering health naturally, while also taking a chunk of that health itself. It is quite the malady to be afflicted by. These ones also have a second pair of wings on the back for added mobility, speed, and power, and generally, again, it is everything Rukodiora can do, but absolutely massively enhanced. And that, sadly, is all there is to tell on this dragon. There is not a lot going on here, but what is here is very, very cool. You gotta remember, this guy was quite early on, and the decision to go this magnetic route to really think about what this first Frontier Elder Dragon was going to be and going to be able to do, and I think they came up with something really striking and certainly original. He is not my favorite creature visually, though again I do adore his wing setup, but in terms of how he actually operates, yeah, I think it's really fantastic. And because now, thanks to Nawa, we really do have magnetism in monsters right up at the forefront of the current Monster Hunter game, this does not start to look too ridiculous when thinking about the main series anymore. And in fact, there's a really cool set of magnetic monsters still in Frontier that I hopefully will talk about one day. But in any case, I really think the idea of a monster being able to manipulate hunters positionally by magnetizing their armor and pushing and pulling them and having to deal with that, I think it's wonderful. I think more monsters need to have battlefield control that isn't just big explosions everywhere. Battlefield control that isn't an attack or damage in itself, but makes it much harder to avoid them or much harder to land them in return. And this really does work. So, yeah, again, given now we're going forward, I would certainly like to see something like this, or hell, even specifically this. Of all the Frontier monsters, I definitely don't think that there is many over Rookodiora that would work as a one-to-one, just put him in. I'd say he's in the top 10 who fall into that category. Let me know what you guys do indeed think of him, of course, and let me know which monster you'd like to see next. Like if you enjoyed this, subscribe for more, please consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.